All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Leader's Inner Journey, where we explore leadership effectiveness from the inside out. My guest today is Nasrin Azari. She is currently leading two North Carolina B2B software companies simultaneously. She's the CEO of both Floodlight Software, a new SaaS startup, and Mobile Reach, a mature mobility software company that's been in business for over 14 years. Both of her companies provide digital transformation for customers, allowing them to operate their businesses more efficiently and eliminate manual processes. She's passionate about creating software solutions that make businesses better and improve the lives of individuals. She's a proven leader, sought after speaker, and multi industry thought leader. Thank you, Nasrin, so much for visiting us today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, we're talking about leadership effectiveness and leading two software companies and also having lots of experience in leadership, and probably even when you weren't a leader, having leaders that you worked with and reported to in your prior companies. We're going to ask a series of questions about how the really great leaders, in your opinion, differ from maybe just the people who aren't so high performing, even though they happen to be in leadership positions. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to ask a series of questions. And what I really like to start with is, what do you notice, if you can think of maybe a few leaders that you really, really respected, that kind of felt like great leaders to you, and compare those with maybe people who were in leadership positions, but maybe you didn't have a lot of respect for. And what do you think are maybe a couple of the key differences?
It's a great question. I think first of all, I feel like the really, really great leaders have this this vision that kind of goes beyond, right? It's like they aren't thinking tactically. You can tell that they're thinking strategically. So it's almost like they're thinking 5 steps ahead of the rest of us. And so they're able to kind of envision a future for the company, and in such a way that you really feel like it's not just about next month's numbers. It's about, okay, how do we make a difference in the world 5 years from now? Where how is the world changing? Where is the world going? And I feel like they just kind of have this longer term vision. So that's kind of one thing about sort of the strategic vision aspect that I think really appeals to me. And then in terms of personality, something that I've noticed, some leaders are very sort of dictatorial, like this is how things need to go, and they're more directive. And I really think that the leaders that I respect, that I think are very effective and are able to get more out of their organizations, are the ones that ask questions of their people and like to hear differing opinions. They appreciate when people stand up to them. And so it's kind of wanting that sort of, back and forth, diverse, conversation around issues and topics to solve them versus other leaders that kind of just dictate, this is how we're going to do it, go forth and make it happen, without sort of thinking about or even asking for other people's opinions or other people's thoughts on the matter. So you feel like you're included, when you have the leaders that are asking your opinion and wanting to hear what you don't like about their, the path that they've laid forward. You feel like you're involved in it, and you sort of, I think you end up becoming more, taking more ownership of the path when you feel like your voice is heard and you're part of that solution versus just, being a cog in a wheel that you have really no control over.
So that's really interesting, because that sort of leads me to my next question, which is these things that you've sort of noticed are different between the leaders that you really have a lot of respect for versus the ones not so much. how they affect other people around them. And so, this idea that the leader that's more authoritarian and sort of dictates, we do this, we do this, we do this, so just do what I tell you to do. The effect on people is that they're maybe not as engaged, whereas when they actually want to hear what you have to say, and they actually want you to bring forth your opinion into the mix so that we can have a diverse exchange of ideas, then everyone in that room suddenly feels differently. They feel more included, they feel more invested in the end result, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right.
So let's go back to that first one, kind of the real visionary leader that's thinking, 5 years ahead, and compare to maybe one that's just thinking about this quarter's number. What do you think the effect of that difference is on maybe the people around them?
So I think it gives people the confidence that we have a long-term plan. And I think it gives people that sense of security because, businesses go up and down all the time. You've
Mm-hmm.
got you have the bumps, there's bumps in the road all the time. I've experienced in my career plenty of bumps in the road. And when the going gets tough, when you're kind of having a bad period, you're going through a rough period, you want your team to stay motivated and stay positive and stay focused. And if all you care about is, how we're doing this quarter, for example, everyone is going to start to freak out
Mm-hmm.
in that, right? So I think it just gives people the confidence that, okay, I'm not just being evaluated on, you know, um, this paper that I write today, but as or it also gives people the encouragement, I think, to take on new tasks and learn something new where they may not have the competence right off the bat. So, we're entering this new era and we have to learn about X, Y, and Z. You're kind of more willing to step up and take the plunge when you feel like you've got a longer runway in front of you where you can prove, your value or to yourself or to your leadership. And so, I think what I've seen is having focus, kind of a longer term focus, um, enables people to grow more. So it enables them to sort of not be afraid to take on some, new tasks or learn new skills that may not have immediate benefit to the company, but they'll have benefit in a year, and you feel like you'll be around to see it,
Mm-hmm.
because your leadership is 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 kind of entrusting you with this longer term vision. So obviously they're, kind of bringing you into the fold and wanting, kind of bringing you into a more longer term project, I guess. Um, so that's kind of how I think it would affect people in the business or in the organization.
Yeah, and as I listen to you, I'm imagining myself with you as my leader talking about this exciting thing that we're working towards that's 5 years ahead of us or something. And I'm feeling excited because I feel like I'm a part of creating something. Whereas
Yeah.
maybe this week's numbers aren't going to be as excited. So I can see how I would be more willing to take those risks.
Hmm.
So, so let's just, kind of spin our conversation today around these two traits. So one is really that strategic thinking, that ability to kind of articulate the longer term vision, and also this idea of encouraging diverse thinking around decision making and what we're going to do and, how we're going to proceed on things. Let's say, our listeners are saying, okay, great. I think that those two traits are great. So I want to be that kind of leader, right? I want to be a visionary leader, and I want to be, someone who doesn't just order people around. What do you think is the difference inside? Because I know that a lot of times we can say, well, I want to be like this, but maybe it doesn't come out that way. So what do you imagine is the difference inside, for someone who's maybe talking more in a visionary manner about 5 years ahead, and we can deal with these both together, and or someone who's really really inviting more diverse discussion as we make decisions about how to proceed forward?
So I think in the first instance, when we're thinking about, sort of becoming a strategic thinker, a long-term thinker, it's kind of, you think of your business as it's a marathon, right? It's not just about what happens tomorrow. That's just one step towards the destination. And it may be that it's not a straight line to my destination. It may go in curves. I think it's just having confidence that, a lot of us have been through these exercises where you envision your business in a year and you have these goals, and those are always the kind of the easiest goals to make and they're generally around revenue and customer acquisition and product, for me, product development or service delivery, something like that, and those are sort of the concrete things that we do. And so I think it's kind of changing the mindset from sort of accomplishments, like task-based things, to thinking about, what does my company look like in 4 years, 3 years, 5 years? What does it look like? Who are my customers, and who are my employees, and how are we interacting with the competition and with the market? And one of the things that drives me is how is my company making a difference in the market? What is it that what are they looking at us for? So I kind of try to think about or fantasize around, what's the media saying about Floodlight software? What's the media saying about Mobile Reach? How are they, what are they going to be saying, talking about in 5 years related to Floodlight software, for example? And I try to think about what I want that to be. What do I want them to be saying about who we are and how we've made the industry better? And I think that's the sort of the inner thing that's different is, it's always important to think about your goals and very concrete growth measurements and things like that. But I think it's just forcing yourself to develop this picture of what you want your company to look like, and then striving towards it. And then, then when you hit the bumps in the road, it's okay, I just have to get around this obstacle. Either I go over it, or I go around it, or I go through it, or I figure out how to get to the next place. And like I said, it may not be a straight line. It may be that you try one route and you realize, okay, that's not working so well, let me try something different. Or you never know, next year a new technology comes out, or a new competitor comes into the mix, and you're thinking, oh, well, maybe we can collaborate with them. So things change, things are so dynamic. But if you sort of have that picture of, where do I want to be? Where do I want my company to be? How do I want folks to look at us? I think I guess to me, that's kind of how I think of it.
Yeah, and so it sounds like, if we think about it from an inner perspective, right? If I'm trying to become more visionary as a leader, then I would need to train myself to spend, a good percentage of my time thinking about that picture.
Yeah.
So it's kind of what's going on inside my head is I'm thinking about that picture. I may be dreaming about that picture, but I'm constantly thinking and holding that vision in my head so it's clear. And so I kind of naturally start talking about it to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's hit the other one.
So the inclusive.
The different styles of leadership, more autocratic versus more, so more telling you what to do versus more, what's your opinion? What's your opinion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think this is a good one for me in particular, because in my own growth path, a big thing for me has been, I've always felt like I had to have the answers. And so when I get questioned, I think it's, in some ways there's a maturity level and a confidence level where when, and everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's growth path is a little different. But for me, feeling like I have to have the answers. So when somebody asks me a question or poses a challenge or poses a situation, I feel like I have to have the answer, regardless of whether it's the best answer or the right answer. I feel like I've got to show up as being confident and having the answer. And that, I think, although I'm not trying to be autocratic, that's kind of how it comes across, as I'm being directive. I'm not really, So I think having the confidence to say, I don't necessarily know that I have the best answer myself, and being okay with that, being okay with, I might not have all the answers. I have a really smart team, and if I really truly want to get the best results, let me hear. They're doing a lot of the day-to-day work. I'm not doing all of it. I might be doing some of it. I'm probably not even doing most of it. So what do they think? I've
Mhm.
got other folks in my company that are talking with our customers on a regular basis, a lot more than I am. I've got other people in my company that are developing the product and seeing where it's really strong, and I might not see that. And so, I think in terms of the inner perspective, it's recognizing that that you that you don't have the whole perspective of your company, even though you're at the top. In fact, especially when you're at the top, it's very difficult to see everything. And I think just wanting to make sure that you're seeing everything is kind of a good first step into bringing your people along. And then I think just getting the positive energy from that engagement is another, that's sort of I think it's a cycle that helps build on itself, because once you start engaging people and they start responding and you start seeing the positive results, you're going to want to continue to do that.
Mhm.
I think there's another part of it that I think people get tripped up with, and it's when they don't like to be challenged. And I think that can be hard too, especially, and again, I think it comes back to confidence. If you don't have a lot of confidence in what you want to accomplish or where you want to go, then challenges are threatening. Whereas if you do, like, if you're really, really passionate about where you want to go, the challenges are opportunities to to make to make the approach better, right? Because you want to find the issues, any issues in your plan, as soon as possible, because then you can fix them and you won't be surprised by them later on.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you were talking, the same word jumped into my mind, which is confidence. It sounds like, the more confidence you have, the more you can play with your idea of a vision and feel like there's a really good shot that you'll get there. And the more confident you are, the more you can play with other people's ideas and invite other people's ideas, and not have to be the smartest ones in the world, because, or not have to be the smartest one in the room, because it doesn't matter. You still feel
Right.
good about the value that you're offering. So one thing you talked about a little bit, and I'd like to come back to, is when I talk about this idea of the leader's inner journey. Does that bring anything up for you? Like, what do you think the leader's inner journey is, really?
Well, I think it's your own mindset change as you evolve and become a better leader. And I mean, I certainly have a long way to go still, but I feel like I've come a long way too. And, one of the things I mentioned was that, letting go of feeling like I need to have all the answers, and that sort of, immediate need to respond and try to be the one that answers everything is one thing. And then kind of along the same lines is letting go. I mean, I think especially, I run two small companies, and it's a lot of times, I'm not just directing the company and making decisions. I'm also, writing papers and helping to design where the product goes and things like that. Well, I've pretty much, I'm getting to the point where I've really let that go, and I've started to, let other folks step up and let other people take ownership of the parts of the company. And it's kind of scary, because you sort of feel like you're losing your importance sometimes. And, I'm losing my importance on the product side. I mean, I don't make product decisions anymore. I'm not the one that's in front of all of our customers. I've got somebody else that does that. And so it's a little bit scary because you feel like and in a lot of ways, as a CEO, for example, you're not the most important person in your company.
Mm-hmm.
You're not you're not, and I think for me, that journey has been that a the realization that I'm not the most important person in the company, and sort of embracing the
Mm-hmm.
fact that my role is really to clear the way for everybody else, clear the obstacles out of their way, give them an environment that helps them grow and prosper so that I'm, you know, moving us towards this end game that, this vision that I've come up with. And everybody's doing their part, and sometimes it feels like everybody is it's like everybody else has all these Lego pieces, and I'm just, I'm not really putting the Lego pieces on the model anymore. I'm just kind of like, looking at it and saying, I think we need a little bit more over here, we need some more yellow pieces, but I'm not necessarily making it happen. And that's a tough thing. I think it's really a lot about letting go. And
Mm-hmm.
that has been a real learning experience for me that's taken years, is just that getting comfortable with letting go, getting comfortable with not being the focus of the company. And, sometimes I feel like I'm more of an observer than I am a participant. And, I'm the one that's watering the garden versus the one that's actually growing,
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of how, for me, that's how the journey's felt so far.
Yeah, I just love the way you express that. And I've often felt also that it's almost like as you become more invisible, you also become more powerful. Because, not even, with the Lego metaphor that you were using, I mean, you're not even really saying, let's move these Lego pieces here and let's move these Lego pieces there. You're saying, well, what do you think about where the Lego pieces should go, right? Because you're
Yeah,
getting all of there. So you're really facilitating the process, but you are making it all about them. And in doing that, I think you become a much more powerful leader.
yeah, that's kind of what I've observed. And it's sort of a combination of, like, for me, what I've noticed is it feels like it's, two steps forward and one step back in terms of doing it right, of evolving and growing. It's taking that couple steps forward, feeling anxious, and then taking a step back, and then
Mm-hmm.
trying again. And it's a lot of times it's trial and error, or I find myself getting too worked up about one thing or another, and then realizing that I have to solve certain problems in the company, but I've got to let other people solve certain problems. I can't get caught up in every problem. And it's kind of, the other piece of this, I think, that's been a growth path for me, is recognizing that the best opportunities you have as a leader, and the best opportunities that you have as a company, are when you have problems. When everything's going
Mm-hmm.
well, it's very difficult for everybody else to sort of see your character. But
Mm-hmm.
when things are going rough, and I'm a really, really, really big advocate for taking ownership of issues that customers have. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I tell my team, and that I strongly believe, is that when a customer has a complaint, and sometimes I get, like, excited, not excited about the fact that they don't like something that's happened, but we have an opportunity to show them who we are. We have an opportunity to show them a solution to a problem. If nothing goes wrong, they're like, oh yeah, everything's great with Mobile Reach, or everything's great with Floodlight. We haven't had any issues. But when something goes wrong, the product fails for some reason, or they have a glitch, and they call you, and you respond and you fix it for them, there's a that's a big difference. That's a big
Mm-hmm.
impact on them, and that's something that they're going to remember. And so, even though it may feel very uncomfortable at the time, I feel like those are the opportunities for really showing growth and positive results to your customers and to your employees, and just, in general. It's kind of like the tough times are where the difficulties, the challenges, that's where you really grow.
Yeah, it's interesting. As I'm listening to you, I think about the paradox of the journey, and you've talked about letting go a little bit, but it seems like you have to keep putting pieces of your ego aside, because the situations that are the most threatening to your ego, if you act in kind of a protective way, to protect your image, or what people think of you, or whether people think you're smart enough or have the answers, or what your numbers look like this week, or the fact that nothing ever goes wrong with your product. That mindset is actually not effective. And the mindset that is effective is this more fluid, kind of egoless comfort level with things going wrong, and just engaging, and the path not always being straight, and just kind of really being able to flow through challenge and welcome and embrace challenges, as you mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely it's kind of not being afraid of that anymore, sort of losing the fear of the challenges, and seeing that as an opportunity to shine and kind of show your strengths. And they're not always going to go smoothly, and they're not always going to be successful, but you always learn something from it. And you're either going to grow as a person, the company will grow. I definitely feel like the times in my career that I've learned the most have also been the most difficult.
Makes a lot of sense. Wow, this is really, really powerful. So let's wrap it up with one more question. So I'd like to ask everybody for a really concrete, tangible tip. So I think people who are watching this are loving this idea of getting a picture of where to grow, right? Kind of, if long term, I just really want to develop myself into a powerful leader. And now let's say I'm looking for what's something I can start doing now within the next week or so, that I can kind of get my hands around, that will make me more effective. Do you have anything that you feel has been a go to for you that's really sort of helped you be effective in your job?
I definitely think that, if we want to sort of stick to some of the things that we've been talking about, that whole engaging of employees. And one of the things that I've learned, and I don't know if I'm going to get this right, but it's like you want to ask your team, what is it that I don't know that I should know? What is it that it's like there's three questions, and that's kind of one of them. But being able to, what is it that I don't know that I should know? What is it that I haven't asked you about that I should have asked? So it's kind of like sometimes when you go into a room as a leader and you have a meeting with your team, sometimes people are intimidated, and sometimes the leaders just look at that as, okay, well, there's nothing wrong. There's not, it's kind of a way to engage people and engage diverse opinions, is to walk in and say, so there's a couple things. One is, when you have a big decision to make or a big problem to solve, and you bring your team together, and let's say you walk into a meeting and you want to discuss the issue and you want to have a resolution. Well, first of all, it's really important that you don't walk into a meeting with an agenda, with already knowing what the outcome should be, right? So you have to kind of train yourself to walk into a meeting without not trying to convince everybody else that what you think is right is right. So you walk into a meeting and you say, this is what I know. Now, let's not talk about that anymore. Tell me what I don't know.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. So that's been real helpful for me is, a lot of times we do get wrapped up in our egos, but this is kind of a concrete way to recognize that if I want to get to the right solution or the best solution, I want to hear from everybody. So I want to hear what people have to say if they have doubts about the path. So I might walk in and say, here's what I know, here's what I'm thinking. Tell me. I don't really want to hear people agree with me. I want to hear, for those of you that have other opinions or maybe have thought about things that might go against what I've laid out here, I want to hear from you. So give them, sort of, so that's, make that the point of your meeting. I think that's one good thing. And then the other thing too that I think has been helpful for me is sometimes you leave a meeting and you feel like you have consensus and everybody's agreed, this is what we're going to do. Give it 20, especially if it's a big decision or a big move, give it 24 hours, go back to your team and say, this is what we decided yesterday. Does anybody have any doubts? Has anything come up for everybody in the last 24 hours that might make you think there's a better way, or that there's something we didn't think about? Because a lot of times you get into a meeting, you sort of get caught up in everybody's excitement, and then afterwards you go in, you think, gosh, we never really talked about how this is going to affect our existing customers or something like that. And then you're going ahead, you're not thinking about it, you're moving forward, and then there's a little bit of sort of unrest within the team, and you're not getting full support and you get frustrated. So this kind of helps you go back and kind of make sure that when you've made an important decision that everybody still agrees, because a lot of times things come up afterwards. So those are kind of the two practical things I think
I
that have
love
helped
that.
with decision making, which is
I
a big
love that because I think most people are so worried about like how do I get my buy-in, right? So that the first sign that they
yeah.
have buy-in, they want to just go. And I know for myself, I've left meetings and I'm thinking about it. And then of course, now that I'm in the privacy of my own thoughts without being so influenced by the dynamic of the team, then new things come up. So I love that. I'm going to
Yeah.
incorporate it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whole buy-in thing, when you walk into a meeting and you have, and you're trying to just get buy-in for your idea, that shuts people down sometimes. It kind of pushes them back to thinking, yeah, well, I'm just going to, keep my mouth shut because nobody wants to hear a dissenting opinion.
Right, right. And I love that. And I love it. And the idea that dissenting opinions are actually going to make the ultimate decision
Better.
better instead of, oh gosh, if we have dissenting opinions, then we're just going to be the stalemate. We're not going to move forward at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate
Good.
your time and your wisdom. So,
Mhm.
if anyone in our audience sort of wants to find you or get to know you or reach out to you, would that be okay with you?
Yeah, of course.
And how
Yeah.
would they do that?
So, I mean, you can put my contact information up on your page. Probably LinkedIn or email is the best way to get in touch with me. I'm pretty good about getting onto LinkedIn, once every 2 to 3 days. Um, Emails, I'm generally in that every day, so it's another good way.
Excellent, excellent. And the websites are www.
So for Floodlight, it's www.floodlightsoft.com. And
Mhm.
then for Mobile Reach, it's www.mobilereach.com.
Thank
Very
you.
simple.
Hey, love it. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for being here with us. I really appreciate it. And thanks all of you for being with us and listening. Bye, everyone.